Fatima's day is far from over when she steps into her apartment, only to find Joon Lee, the feared Korean Mafia boss, cleaning her house. His confession leaves her speechless, and the truth behind it is too painful to ignore. Can they truly rebuild what's broken, or is the damage beyond repair? Welcome to K-Seoul Afro Stories, Besties. Before we go into the video, tell me where you're watching. I'd like to connect with my audience here. The smell hit Fatima first. Lemon cleaner and something floral she couldn't quite place. Her exhausted mind struggled to process what her eyes were seeing as she pushed through her apartment door. A man knelt in her living room, scrubbing the baseboard with focused intensity. Not just any man. Joon Lee. The name alone made people cross streets and lower their voices. Seoul's most feared mafia boss was on his knees in her tiny apartment, cleaning her floors like his life depended on it. Fatima's medical bag slipped from her shoulder and hit the floor with a dull thud. Joon's head snapped up, dark eyes locking onto hers. For a moment, neither of them moved. The silence stretched between them like a live wire, crackling with tension and unspoken words. His suit jacket hung over her kitchen chair, his white shirt rolled up to reveal forearms corded with muscle and marked with faded scars. "What are you doing in my home?" Fatima's voice came out steadier than she felt. Her heart hammered against her ribs, adrenaline flooding her system. This man had the power to make people disappear with a phone call. She'd seen him twice before, both times at the hospital where she worked. Both times, his presence had felt like a storm contained in human form. Joon rose slowly, setting down the cleaning rag with careful deliberation. "I owe you an explanation." His accented English was soft, almost gentle. It didn't match the hard lines of his face or the reputation that preceded him everywhere he went. "I needed to do this for you, to show you that I understand what was taken from you." The next day, Fatima couldn't shake the memory of finding Joon in her apartment. She demanded answers, and he'd given them. Slowly, painfully, he'd explained how his organization had been unknowingly used to traffic medical supplies stolen from her hospital. How corrupt administrators had funneled resources meant for patients into black market sales. How Fatima's complaints and whistleblowing had made her a target. How he'd only discovered the connection when one of his men brought him files with her name highlighted as a problem to be eliminated. "I stopped it," Joon had said, his jaw tight with barely contained rage. "Everyone involved in targeting you has been dealt with. The administrators are being investigated. The trafficking ring is dismantled. But I know that doesn't erase what you went through. The exhaustion, the gaslighting, the fear. You lost months of your life to their corruption." Fatima had wanted to stay angry, to maintain the wall between them. But something in his eyes had cracked her defenses. Guilt. Real, devastating guilt that seemed to consume him from the inside out. He'd bowed to her then, a full 90-degree bow that shocked her into silence. A man like him didn't bow to anyone. Later that evening, Fatima's brother Malik showed up unannounced. His eyes swept her apartment, noting the spotless floors and the lingering scent of cleaning products. His expression darkened immediately. He was here, wasn't he? That criminal. "Fatima, what are you thinking? Men like Joon Lee don't change. They use people and discard them." "You don't understand," Fatima tried to explain, but Malik cut her off with a sharp gesture. His protective instincts had been in overdrive since she'd nearly lost her nursing license due to the false accusations. "I understand perfectly. He sees you as a liability or a curiosity. Either way, you're in danger. Stay away from him." But even as Malik spoke, Fatima's phone buzzed with a message. I know I have no right to ask for your time, but there's someone I'd like you to meet. Someone who needs to understand the consequences of the life I've led, if you're willing. The message was from Joon, and attached was a photo that made Fatima's breath catch. A little girl, maybe 7 years old, with Joon's dark eyes and a smile that seemed to hold the sun. A few days later, Fatima found herself at a private residence in one of Seoul's most exclusive neighborhoods. Joon answered the door himself, dressed casually in dark jeans and a simple sweater that somehow made him look more dangerous than his expensive suits ever had. Thank you for coming. His voice was low, almost reverent. Mintio has been asking about the lady who helps sick people. The little girl appeared behind him, peeking around his legs with curious eyes. Mintio was beautiful and shy, clutching a worn, stuffed rabbit. Joon's entire demeanor transformed in her presence. The hard edges softened, his voice gentled, his movements became careful and measured. This was a man who would burn the world down for this child, Fatima realized. And somehow, knowing that made everything more complicated. Throughout the afternoon, Fatima watched Joon interact with his daughter. He made her lunch, checked her homework, listened with complete attention as she described her day at school. And when Minchio asked Fatima about being a nurse, Joon's eyes never left Fatima's face. The intensity of his gaze made heat crawl up her neck, made her hyper-aware of every movement she made. That evening, after Minchio had gone to bed, Joon poured tea with hands that trembled slightly. My wife died when Minchio was 2. Cancer. I had all the money in the world, and it meant nothing. I couldn't save her. The pain in his voice was raw, unguarded. After that, I stopped pretending my business had any moral justification. I became exactly what people feared. Until your case landed on my desk, and I realized I'd become the kind of man who endangered women trying to save lives. The following morning, Fatima woke to find groceries on her doorstep. Fresh vegetables, premium cuts of meat, imported teas, and a note in Joon's precise handwriting. You give so much to others. Let someone give to you. She should have been angry at the presumption, at the reminder that he'd learned where she lived and what she needed. Instead, warmth bloomed in her chest, dangerous and unwanted. At the hospital, Fatima's colleagues buzzed with gossip about the scandal that had rocked their administration. 3 high-level executives arrested, criminal charges filed, a complete overhaul of supply chain management. No one knew who'd blown the whistle, but Fatima knew. She'd seen the calculation in Joon's eyes, the methodical way he approached problems that needed solving. By the end of the week, Fatima had fallen into an unexpected routine. Joon would text in the morning, just checking that she'd arrived at work safely. Mincio would send drawings that Joon delivered personally, his eyes lingering on Fatima like she was something precious and fragile. He never pushed, never demanded, just existed in her orbit with patient determination. Then everything changed when Fatima finished a particularly brutal shift and found Joon waiting in the parking garage. His face was tight with barely controlled fury. Who is he? The doctor who touched your arm. Who is he to you? The possessiveness in his voice should have frightened her. Instead, it sent electricity down her spine. Dr. Chen is a colleague, she said carefully, watching dangerous emotions flicker across Joon's face. We were discussing a patient case. Nothing more. But Joon stepped closer, invading her space with predatory grace. I don't share, Fatima. I know I have no claim to you yet. But I don't share. His voice dropped to a rough whisper. Tell me you understand. Later that night, alone in her apartment, Fatima couldn't stop thinking about the heat in Joon's eyes, the barely leashed intensity of his need. She shouldn't want this, shouldn't crave the obsessive attention of a dangerous man who'd built an empire on fear and blood. But when her phone rang and his voice filled her ear, low and intimate, asking if she was safe, if she'd eaten, if she needed anything, her body betrayed every rational thought. The next day, Joon invited her to a gallery opening. Minseo will be there with her grandmother. I thought you might enjoy the art. It wasn't really an invitation, more like a hopeful request from a man who clearly wasn't used to asking for anything. Fatima found herself saying yes before she could overthink it. The gallery was elegant and exclusive, full of Seoul's elite pretending to understand abstract expressionism. Joon kept his hand on the small of Fatima's back, possessive and protective, guiding her through crowds that parted automatically at his approach. Minseo clung to his other hand, occasionally reaching for Fatima's fingers with shy affection that made Fatima's heart squeeze painfully. But the evening shattered when a rival appeared. Fatima didn't know the details, only that the man's presence made Joon's entire body go rigid with threat. Sharp words were exchanged in rapid Korean. The rival's eyes slid to Fatima with calculated interest, and everything exploded. Joon moved with terrifying speed, putting himself between Fatima and the threat, his voice dropping to lethal softness as he issued warnings that needed no translation. Security escorted the rival out, but the damage was done. Joon's mask had slipped, revealing the monster underneath the careful control. Minseo was taken home by her grandmother, and Fatima found herself in Joon's car, the silence between them heavy with unspoken violence and frustrated desire. "I'm sorry you saw that." Joon's knuckles were white on the steering wheel. "That man has been trying to expand into my territory. Now he knows you exist, and that makes you a target." The raw fear in his voice cut through Fatima's remaining defenses. "I won't let anyone hurt you. I can't." A few days later, Fatima's fears proved justified. She was leaving the hospital when a black van pulled up beside her. Men with hard faces and dead eyes moved with practiced efficiency. She barely had time to scream before a cloth covered her mouth and the world went dark. Fatima woke in an unfamiliar room, tied to a chair, her head pounding. The rival from the gallery stood before her, his smile cruel. "Your protector has 1 hour to deliver what I want, or you'll learn exactly what happens to women who attract the attention of men like us." Terror flooded her system, but underneath it, anger burned bright. She was not a pawn in their war. Meanwhile, Joon's world had imploded. The moment he'd gotten the call that Fatima was taken, something primal and uncontrollable had awoken in him. He'd mobilized every resource, called in every favor, activated his entire network. His men moved through Seoul like a plague, methodical and merciless. When they found the location, Joon led the assault personally. The building erupted in controlled chaos. Joon moved through enemies like death given human form, focused and lethal. When he finally reached Fatima, when he saw her bound and bruised but alive, the relief that crashed through him nearly brought him to his knees. He untied her with shaking hands, pulling her against his chest, breathing her in like she was oxygen after drowning. That evening, in the safety of his home with Minseo asleep upstairs and guards stationed at every entrance, Joon finally let himself break. "I thought I'd lost you." His voice was wrecked, destroyed. "I thought I'd failed you the way I failed my wife. I can't survive that again, Fatima. I can't." Fatima reached for him, her hands cupping his face, forcing him to meet her eyes. "I'm here. I'm alive. You saved me." But Joon shook his head, his control completely shattered. "I nearly got you killed. Being close to me put you in danger. Maybe Malik was right. Maybe you should stay away from me." The words broke something in Fatima. After everything they'd been through, all the careful trust they'd built, he was trying to push her away to protect her. "No," she said firmly. "You don't get to make that decision for me. I choose this. I choose you. Even knowing the danger, even understanding what your world looks like. I choose us." Joon's resistance crumbled. He pulled her close, his mouth finding hers with desperate hunger. The kiss was everything they'd been denying themselves, all the longing and need and fear transmuted into something molten and consuming. When he lifted her, carrying her toward his bedroom, Fatima didn't protest. She'd been fighting this connection for too long, and she was done pretending she could walk away. The following morning, Fatima woke alone. Panic seized her immediately. Had he regretted it? Was he pulling away again? But then she heard his voice, low and soothing, coming from the hallway. She found him on the phone, conducting business with deadly efficiency, while simultaneously making breakfast one-handed. When he saw her, his entire expression softened into something that looked dangerously like love. Over the next weeks, Fatima's life transformed completely. Joon didn't do anything halfway. He courted her properly, integrating her into his and Minsio's life with deliberate intention. Malik remained suspicious, but even he couldn't deny that Joon was devoted to Fatima's safety and happiness. The hospital promoted her, finally recognizing her dedication without the sabotage that had nearly destroyed her career. Joon, meanwhile, began the slow process of legitimizing his business empire. It would take years, he explained one night as they lay tangled together, but he wanted to build something Minsio could be proud of. Something you can be proud of. He traced patterns on Fatima's skin, his touch reverent. "You make me want to be better than I am." 6 months later, Joon proposed in the same apartment where he'd first appeared cleaning her floors. He'd recreated that moment deliberately, kneeling in her living room with a ring that caught the light like captured starfire. "I started here trying to earn your forgiveness. Let me spend the rest of my life earning your love." Fatima said yes through tears, knowing that their path hadn't been easy, but had been undeniably theirs. The wedding was small and private, held in a garden with Mincio as flower girl and Malik grudgingly standing as Fatima's man of honor. Joon's vows were simple but devastating. "You saw the worst of me and stayed. You gave me reason to change. You loved my daughter like she was your own. I will spend every day proving I deserve you." Fatima's response was equally simple. "You already do." A year later, Fatima stood in their home, one hand on her growing belly, watching through the window as Joon pushed Mincio on the swing set he'd built in their yard. His laughter carried through the glass, genuine and unguarded. This was the life they'd built from broken pieces, from trauma and trust, from a chance encounter that should have been terrifying, but became the beginning of everything. Joon caught her watching, and his smile shifted into something intimate and knowing. He said something to Mincio that made the little girl giggle, then headed toward the house with purpose in every stride. When he reached Fatima, he pulled her close, his hands playing protectively over where their second child grew. "I love you," he murmured against her temple. "Thank you for not giving up on me, for seeing past the monster to the man underneath." Fatima leaned into his strength, into the safety of arms that had once terrified her and now felt like home. "I love you too, and I'd choose you again, every single time. As the sun set over Seoul, painting the sky in shades of gold and crimson, Fatima finally understood that sometimes the most dangerous men made the most devoted protectors. That love could grow even in the darkest soil, and that the greatest courage was choosing to trust again after betrayal, to love again after loss, to build something beautiful from the ruins of everything that tried to destroy you. Did you enjoy the story? Tell me what you will have done if you're Fatima. Also, like, share, and subscribe for more story as this.